Hey folks, this is Dr. Brian King. Once again, coming to you on the road. This time I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm sitting down, hanging out with a good friend of mine, a comedy friend. Well, I don't like to call people comedy friends, although we met in comedy, let's put it that way. He's a friend, but he's a fellow comedian. We must have met maybe like over 10 years ago or so in San Francisco. Both of us been hitting the road doing comedy over the past years that we've known each other. And he just finished killing, basically, at a show here in Raleigh. I'd like to introduce you guys to my good friend, Mr. Greg G. Williams.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and blues. I'm here, I'm there.
So how are you, Greg?
Hey, I'm doing great. How you doing, folks? Good to see you again, sir.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. I don't think we've seen each other in maybe like 5 years or so. I feel like
you stayed at my place. You know, Sarah stayed at my place in Fresno.
Yeah, and that was like 2018.
2018,
yes.
Because
my baby was a baby, little 1 year old, I think,
Yeah.
and we barely overlapped too, man. You were working when we showed up at the house.
I left the key for you. I stayed at my ex's house, whose name we won't mention. And then y'all stayed there.
That's right. And then we saw you in the morning. So
Yes,
it was real brief, though. That's the thing. I was like, damn, you know. And that was it, man. Oh, and then you and I hooked up on the road not too long ago. I saw you in Fresno.
In Fresno, yes, we had dinner at Yard House.
And since Fresno, you now live in Las Vegas, right?
Las Vegas as of April of 2024.
How's Vegas treating you?
Vegas has been great. Airports are great. No state tax. I can be in and out. Plenty of flights available because, as you mentioned on my tour, Nurses Night Out, that I've been having on the road now for about 2 years in 2 different countries, the airports are awesome. I can get a lot of straight flights.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody flies direct from Fresno.
No, it's 2 planes, 2 buses, and a...
You got 3 transfers just to fly to LA.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Vegas is working out for you, man.
Vegas is working out. My plan is to crack into the casinos there and slowly but surely creeping into some of those.
Yeah. Since I mentioned Nurses Night Out, let's go ahead and talk about that. So this tour that you're doing, Nurses Night Out, I mean, I know all about it, but this is kind of interesting. How did this start? Where did it come from? What is it?
Nurses Night Out, I started in 2013 at the San Jose Improv. I looked at it as a way of having nurses who work hard, who don't go out to a lot of shows, because believe it or not, even though we work 3 nights a week, those other 4 we're usually resting. And I thought, this is a good way to get my fellow healthcare workers out. Because I've been a nurse.
We should add you're a nurse.
I'm a nurse, yes.
Yeah.
As my shirt says, not for show. Been a nurse, neonatal intensive care nurse for 27 years. 27 years. And so comic for 18. And I thought, man, a lot of the nurses that I talked to at the time when I was there, I was probably 6 years into comedy. I thought a lot of them didn't come to shows. And I was like, hey, who do y'all see? If they do go as like a Joe Coy or somebody like that, Filipino, shocker, nurses, right? And so I created the show. First one I ever did was on a Tuesday night, which you know is a rough night to have a
it's
show.
hard to get people out.
In the San Jose Improv, which holds 450 people. But I got 150 out on a Tuesday night, and it's been off to the races ever since.
That's impressive, man. That's impressive. And how many cities have you gone to?
Cities, it's been over 50 in 2 countries. So the U.S. and Canada. Just came back from Canada 2 weeks ago.
So if you're a nurse or you just like good comedy, head to check out Nurses Night Out, coming to a comic club near you.
Yes.
I would imagine. So you mentioned you've been doing comedy for about 18 years.
18.
How'd you get started?
I started in Atlanta, Georgia, at a little place that was just actually mentioned in another podcast, on Shannon Sharp's podcast. It's called A Twisted Taco. So the funny thing is, as you can attest to, I took a comedy class, which they get a knock, right?
Yep,
Sometimes depends on who's teaching it. But I had 2 real good teachers. One owned the comedy club. His name is Marshall. And then there was another comic named Big Kenny who taught the class. So it was 3 Mondays out of the month. We did 3 hours every day, or every Monday. And then on the fourth Monday was our graduation, which was, we invited people, and we had 90 people for our first show.
Wow.
Which that's a lot, right?
Yeah, I know, it's great.
I had barely 60 out tonight for the show. So 90 people. And so we did the show. You know, your first time, it's 5 minutes, nervous. I barely remembered. I was in a trance. And then here's the funny thing. Right before the show, Bikini sat us down and said, hey, we want to see, you know, I want to see who's going to do comedy for life. And he asked, when we're done with this, who's going to do comedy the rest of your life? Excuse me. I threw my hand up in there immediately. There are other people, they were like,
I don't know. Yeah. It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. But what was funny is Bikini said, Greg's going to keep doing this. I don't know how far he's going to go, but he's going to keep doing it. And 18 years later, I'm still at it.
Sometimes I wonder how long I'm going to keep doing it, you know, honestly. But I think it's just once you get that bug, you know, it sticks with you.
Yes. And you have to have that bug to keep going because there's a lot of disappointments.
Your likelihood of success is very low, you know. However you measure success, you know, it's very low. But honestly, it's such a great time. Yeah, it really is. It's a rewarding experience. It's awesome, you know. So yeah, when you get that bug though, it's tough. You know?
Hooked.
You mentioned comedy colleges, taking classes, and you gave me a little nod because I did start at a comedy college myself as well in San Francisco.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, I'd like to say, I don't know what your experience was, but I'd just like to say to the listeners and the viewers out there, like, you know, these comedy classes, they're all different, of course, but nobody can teach you how to be funny. And I think these places get a bad rap because that's what outsiders think they're trying to do, you know?
Right.
It's like, oh, you're taking a comedy class, you know? Nobody teaches you how to be funny. What they teach you is how to refine your funny for the stage, so that you don't just start out as a fresh open micer, not knowing certain things, you know, and joke structure and so forth. I thought it was a valuable experience.
For my class, I think it was great, especially now being in it as long as I am. They taught us how to address a crowd, how to take the mic out of the mic stand. How hard is that?
It's super important, actually.
Super important. How to look and watch for time, or you know, the light. Because how many people over the years you see at open mics and they run the light because they don't see it. They get up there and they get happy, and all of that. So he helped us, you know, write jokes as well. But he said that's something you'll figure out when you find your voice, right? Which it takes all of us different times to find our voice. But for me, that comedy class was legit. Since then, yes, I've seen a bunch of guys just trying to get rich or whatever, pay their car note. Yeah.
What I gained from the comedy college experience was just being able to fine tune an idea and turn it into a joke that I could communicate to an audience. You know, everything, you have this idea that's in your head that's funny, and maybe it is funny, it makes you laugh, but it's not until you really start to get in front of a bunch of strangers where that becomes like a skill that you need to work out. So
very true. What people don't get is you laughing at work at the water cooler about such and such who bumped their knee at work. Most people won't understand that unless you translate it and make everybody understand. You know what I mean? Like, you have to bring everybody into, oh, Pam at work bumped her knee and she's a dummy, and you have to really paint a picture. And a lot of people, when I see them come to mics, they don't. They'll just tell some random bland story and everybody gets stares, you know? Yeah. Or the people who think, oh, I've killed at work around the water cooler and I'm going to kill for these 10 people in Bakersfield. And it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
When people are like, you know, everybody says I should try comedy. You know, it's like, because I'm the funniest guy you know, at work or whatever. Those are people that know you. You know, and so you got to learn how to develop that relationship with a room full of strangers.
Yes.
And that's tough. But 18 years in, you're doing it. You're doing it well, and you're doing this tour. I gotta say, the nurse thing is kind of, I don't know, is it unusual? I don't know that many other nurses who also do comedy.
Well, it seems like these guys came out of the woodworks, but there's a nurse Blake now who's doing well. I mentioned him tonight. There's a ER tech named Stephen Ho, and there's a Nurse John, another Filipino guy. And these guys have started their own tours and doing really well, especially Nurse Blake. Nurse Blake is selling out 3,000 to 4,000 seaters. Mm-hmm. He has his own cruise.
Like his own boat.
His own boat.
Wow.
Assigned to him. Everything is on him. This guy's worth like 20 mil.
Wow.
Easy. So if I can get, 1/20th for that, I'd be happy. But sorry to cut you off. But
okay.
I know there's millions of nurses in the country and around the world. And so I figured if I can get some of them and they'll drag somebody along or their family, I can build up a nice little audience base. But my thing is, you see my set tonight, it's pretty relatable. You don't have to be a nurse with my shows to get it, right? It's not that detailed or that specific. Because every baby comes out as little purple folded up pieces of greasy meat, right, with a layer of cheese on them. With these big ass whopped heads, you know what I mean?
Like, I'm a psychologist who's also a comedian, and that's not, I don't know. I guess my question, as you're answering me, I realize I've met a lot of psychologists who are also comedians, throughout my time. Not too many of them I can think of that are famous, or successful. But I've known a bunch of them, and so I've even known like a handful of neuroscientists, who also do comedy.
Wow.
Neuroscience being my specialty, and so I guess comedy draws from all walks of life. But as a nurse, and you're still a nurse.
Still a nurse.
Like as you said tonight, you do a couple of comedy gigs, and then you fly back to Vegas to work a couple of shifts, and
right back on the road.
Yeah, and that's got to be a hell of a schedule.
It's a hell of a schedule, but it's what I have to do right now, just because I'm financing the tour. I'm getting people out, but not to the numbers to where I could quit nursing. What has changed over the last 4 years is I went from full-time to part-time, and I'm making it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like between what I make off shows and merch, and I had a sponsor too. I had a sponsor that I was using, or vice versa. That's helped pay the bills. There's been some rough moments. The credit cards are screaming at me, but it's what you have to do. I mean, no business, no comic, building something, Joe Coy, Jerry Seinfeld, whoever, they didn't have the rough moments in the beginning. So that's just kind of where I'm at in that little rough stage right now. But it's working.
It comes along. I mean, it's tough. We just grind.
Right.
But it is interesting though. Ken John, medical doctor, turned comedian, turned actor, and in the beginning he'd be open micing and doing comedy shows, and then people would go into, I think it was an ER doctor, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a family medicine.
Oh, family, okay.
Yes,
but they would go in and see him, and it's like, wait a minute, weren't you,
Yeah.
You ever have those moments?
I have had that a few times because I work with babies, being a neonatal intensive care nurse, and been a few times where I'm either at a show or I've been in a grocery store or somewhere, and somebody walk up and go, "Hey, we know you. Didn't we see you in the hospital?" Or they're at a show. And you're like, "Hey, we saw that guy. You took care of my baby." Like I literally had a lady at a show one time whose baby I took care of the year before.
Wow.
At a show. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you had the baby.
Right. They could just bring them on stage.
You brought this baby in. Yes.
Yes. But I think I'm unique enough, and I think my stories are good enough that, I can just kind of reach my own audience. You know what I mean? That's what I'm shooting for.
You work delivering babies or tending to babies that have been delivered. I'm not even sure because I'm not a medical doctor. What is that? What's your professional life involved?
With NICU nurses, we either attend deliveries of kids that are having trouble in utero, trouble at delivery, or they may be born really premature. If they're premature, then they come to our unit. So in the NICU, the neonatal ICU, we'll have everything, from big fat term kids that are, having slow starts to kids tiny enough to fit in my hand. Like I've literally had a kid that barely fit in my hand.
Wow.
The smallest kid I've ever taken care of was 14 ounces.
Wow.
14 ounces, probably smaller than the cell phone. Yeah, and I've seen those kids, which it's taken months. You're talking 5 or 6 months to grow up to be big kids that go home. Yeah, so that's my world.
Wow, such a difference from the comedy club environment. You know, it's
Totally different.
But you bring that to your show too. I mean, you talk about being a nurse a lot, you know, and tonight it was interesting too because I saw your set tonight and you went personal in ways that I've never seen you go before, and maybe that's your regular thing, but I haven't seen you perform in a while.
Right.
You know,
Right.
You talked about surviving cancer, for example.
Yes. I'm now 5 years cancer-free as of August of 2024. I had stage 3 and progressing prostate cancer. And it was as you know, tumultuous time for me because I got married probably 6 months prior to that, before the diagnosis. You know, then to find out I have cancer, then to have that person who I married walk away during that time. To where I just had to push all that aside and just heal. And so they did a total prostatectomy, and I got lucky because that had been a few more months that I waited, or if I waited a few more months, it could have metastasized to the rest of my body. But they caught it right on the edges, right in the lymph nodes, which they took some. And I didn't need chemo and radiation, but I caught it, you know, just caught it in time. Yeah, one of the probably, looking on the outside, yeah, definitely one of the worst times of my life. But for me, I just, I don't know, pull something from deep inside to just get through it, get healthy, get the divorce, and move on.
And you wrote jokes about that whole experience.
Jokes. Yes, you know how we comics do. You got to bring it up. You know what I mean? And it was hard though, because anytime you mention the C word, as most people call it, people tighten up. Right.
Yeah.
So
well, the fact that they call it the C word is already part of the tightening.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, because they don't want to say the other, you know, 5 letters. It was tough at first to do it, but I knew I had to work that bit to where I could make it work. If you know, Jim Gaffigan talked about his wife having a brain tumor, and he made it work. So I kind of got some inspiration from that, to where I just said, well, let me just make it as personal and, of course, funny as possible. You know what I mean? Like, even with, I don't know how raw we can get on your podcast, but it was true. So, it's a real quick explanation. To let my area heal down there when they take the prostate out, the doctor had to put a urinary catheter in. It's a catheter that goes down to your bladder and has a reservoir. Well, when the doctor put it in, and he came and explained to me after the surgery how and why he put it in. He's like, Greg, okay, we're letting everything rest down there and heal. And he said, with most men, the man part's hanging down. We take the catheter in that way, it goes to the bag. With you had to put your man parts upwardly and go in that way because you have a long urethra. And I said, stop, doc. Can you say that one more time? Did you just medically clear me for a big one? You just medically cleared me. Bro, do you know how much bragging I can do? And so, yeah, that kind of jumped it off right there. So I got a nice little 5-minute, 7-minute chunk, on that.
No, that's great. When you were saying that on stage too, I'm thinking, how in the hell does he have a long urethra with such a short penis? Like, like what does the urethra stick out?
It's inner shaft.
Yeah.
That's it. It's inside. It's all up to my neck.
Because you're like, you medically cleared me, and I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. Maybe it just bunches up.
I paid him
it
a little
loops.
extra money.
It loops inside.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, no, that's great news, man. That's like, so now you know if comedy doesn't work out, you can always do porn.
There we go. There we go. I'm lining up. I'm practicing. I look at it like this, dude. For me, like some comics are observational, so they talk about Seinfeld, right? He talks about things that he sees, right? You don't hear too many personal stories, whereas others go deep. You know what I mean? And what's worked for me in finding my voice is talking about everything I've been through: the military, the nursing, the divorce, the bike ride I did across the country. I think that's just work. That just works for me. You know what I mean? I can't really talk about, some observational stuff, but I think, and not to even sound selfish, which a lot of comics are, but I have to talk about me. And I think the more personal stories, the more unique my act will be.
Yeah, I believe that and agree with it completely. I mean, my act is almost all personal. Not to say that I have an act. Like, I really don't. I don't have. You've got bits that you hit. You had an order. I saw you before the show. You had your little cards out. And like you've got some structure. Me, I just free fall it, free form it.
Yeah.
But what I do is like I draw everything I draw on as I'm just like spitballing out of my top of my head is all personal stuff, Somebody said welcome to North Carolina. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love being in the land of sweet tea. It's like diabetes water. I can blame like half of this on that shit, man. I really can. And that part right there, that's all fucking sweet tea. This other part, chicken biscuits. What the fuck? Right. The more personal you get, I think, the better, because it's the more real, the more honest you are,
more real,
and you're relatable. Then,
right? More relatable. After almost every show, somebody's come up to me and said they're a nurse, their mama's a nurse, they were saved by a nurse. Somebody's had cancer, somebody's been married, somebody's been divorced, somebody was in the military. There's always some way to connect with people with these jokes. Yeah.
So we're here in Raleigh, and I just moved to North Carolina, a city called Fayetteville. You're from North Carolina,
That's where
right?
I grew up. I grew up in Fayetteville. So I was born in Roanoke, Virginia, but we moved to Fayetteville when I was almost 3. So that's home. You know how it is, and so that's what I considered home. I lived there until I went in the Army at 16, came back for some years, went to nursing school, and then I moved to Atlanta when I was 31. So Fayetteville is home, as much as I hate to say.
Well, you got some strong ties to North Carolina, too, which was really obvious in tonight's show. There were a lot of people in the audience who you connected with based on your knowledge of North Carolina. So,
yeah, especially the Durham reference.
Yeah, I was surprised about that.
Yeah, Durham's a rough city.
It depends. I guess it depends on the neighborhood.
That is true. But overall, Durham. That's where Duke is, and that's the more prestigious side, right? But that's just a small area compared to Durham. You got to be careful in a lot of places in Durham.
How's it feel being back here?
It's weird because I'm in and out so much, and that's the thing with touring, that unless I really have time off in between shows, I don't really get to feel like, because I was in Charleston last night, we drove up today to watch my Steelers win, 7-2, baby, and we went right to the show, so I don't get to feel the city, you know what I mean? And I'm flying out at 5:30 in the morning. You know what I mean?
That's one thing I've never understood about you. Raised in North Carolina, military, Atlanta, all these experiences. How in the hell did you become a Pittsburgh fan?
So when I was 8 years old, I watched the Steelers in the Super Bowl against the Rams in 1978. And Lynn Swann, watching this guy jump in the air and catch these balls left and right, and this tough defense knocking everybody on their asses, and I haven't looked back.
Wow.
So ever since I was 8 years old,
Interesting.
That's been my team.
Interesting. So like you're living in North Carolina, rooting for the Steelers.
Rooting for the Steelers, and I had 2 best friends, and they were Dallas fans. So go figure that. None of them have Dallas ties.
At one point in my life, I lived in Pittsburgh, and I'll say Steelers fans. All football fans are. They have their things, but Steelers fans are really like a unique breed. Like they will go out of their way to find that bar. Like if they're not in Pittsburgh, they got to find whatever bar. There's somebody somewhere that's got the Steelers on, and they're making pierogies and they're waving their towels and stuff. We
were at a bar today here in Raleigh that we found on the Steelers bar website. So they have our Steelers bars across the nation. They have bars in Italy. They have one in Germany.
Yeah.
Australia, everywhere around the world. There's Steelers bars. It's rough and gritty and defense and, blue collar town, as you know, being in Pittsburgh, and they're just loyal people.
Yeah.
So, and I've been to the motherland, which is Pittsburgh, probably 7 or 8 times for games. I was just there for shows last month, 2 months ago, September.
Those were nurses shows?
Those were nurses shows, yep. I did the City Winery in Pittsburgh. That was my second time. I did it in February this year and then September. And great time. Yeah. I had a lady pass out at my February show.
No way.
Lady passed out. I just came on stage. I'm the headliner, right? And so 10 minutes into my set, I hear commotion. And she ends up, she had surgery 2 days prior, but she really wanted to come to the show. So she was taking some medication. I don't know exactly what, probably pain meds. And she ended up passing out because wine and meds don't mix. So I jumped down there and get over there to her. She threw up wine that didn't even make it down to her stomach, obviously. Wow. It was dark wine. She comes to, and
wait, so you were tending to her. You stopped the show and went and got off stage.
Stopped the show and went over to help out.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a nurse practitioner that already started on her, but I jumped down to help out. And the lady started coming to. I kind of kneeled on one knee and sat her against my leg. And she ended up coming to. She looked at me, and I was so handsome, and she just passed back out. But nah, she woke up. She did wake up briefly, passed back out. By that time, 911, the ambulance showed up and took her away. And then I had to go back on stage and start the show all over again.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
That was the show after that.
It was great. It was great because what I did, and most people may not know or do know, Steelers are known for a terrible towel that we wave around every game. Most of the Steelers fans have a Steelers towel. Terrible towel is what they call it. And so when I came out to the show, when they introduced me, I came out with a Steelers towel, and they were playing Renegade by Styx, right? And that's the group. Styx.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to think of the name. And what I did is just went in the back. We reset. The guy introduced me. Came out, did the same thing. Everybody was hyped, and I did my hour, and we were good to go.
Wow, that's pretty
fun
cool.
Night. Yeah, sold a ton.
I can see that really. I could really, especially for you being a nurse, I can see that really kind of helping the show almost. Really.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, since you work with babies, it would have been cool if somebody like just gave birth.
That would have been next, right?
One of your
Birth.
shows.
There was a heart attack.
Just run the gamut,
A
man.
little surgery, but
Get out there, help deliver that baby.
Yes. Experiences like that, dude. As you know, being on the road, like you're gonna have those little, hiccups or hurdles you have to go through, and you have to make it work. These are people that do not know you, that spent $30 to $40, and they want a show. No matter if somebody passes out, and no matter who heckles, they want a show. And so this is really fine-tuned. Making my act work, dude. You know? I wouldn't change one thing.
I love it. I love that you've developed this brand for yourself. I mean, this Nurses Night Out, it really works.
I had to bet on myself, man. It was one of those, as you know, or most people may not know out here in your audience, that because everybody thinks when you start doing comedy and you have a nice little act and they come up to you and say, "Oh man, I hope you have a Netflix special next year." Yeah. Netflix does not knock on the door. Yeah, Netflix doesn't come up and go, "Hey, you come on." And then the days of you blowing up off of a talk show, a late night talk show, those days are kind of over, right? Because Letterman's gone, Conan's gone.
There's so many avenues too. There's so many venues, so many talk shows. It's like it's not worth what it used to be.
It's not worth what it used to be. Those credits don't stick. Actually, what works is the podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast. If you have a successful podcast or you get on a successful podcast, like Joe Rogan is the biggest one in the world, right? And I know I have friends that have been on that. But if you end up on some of the fringe ones, ones with their own pockets of listeners, that can take off because that's an audience. You'll gain a greater audience through a decent podcast than you will through like a late night talk show.
Well, we were talking too about Texas, Kill Tony, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Just getting the opportunity to do a minute on Kill Tony has made so many careers.
Correct.
It's a different landscape for comedy.
Correct.
Yeah, so you kind of have to build your own thing, though.
You have to build your own thing. Kill Tony, it serves its purpose. Not really having to I would want to do, but I get it. Like, it's one of those you have to strike in so many directions, hoping that something will hit. You know what I mean? It's definitely like a throw it against the wall and see what sticks thing. But I will be coming out with my own Nurses Night Out podcast.
Oh yeah.
To gain an audience. Yeah, I've already got my room set up in my apartment now. I just need to get great cameras like yours. I think I'm gonna steal these and get my podcast going. Because that's what you have to do. I was talking with the manager at Good Nights Tonight, and he was like, to get your numbers up, you need a podcast. You have to just draw on whatever audience you can get. Because now, unlike the talk shows, right? I mean, you even think back to what was the original, Johnny Carson, right?
Yeah.
If you got on Carson back in the 70s and the 80s, you were a star the next night, but those days are gone. Now, we're our own Johnny Carsons. So if you can gain audiences, however, minute, or, if you get 10 followers here, 100 there, next thing you know, you'll look up and you'll have, a couple 100,000, which some of my friends have, and now they're working as full-time comics.
Yeah.
So that's my goal.
Build your own career.
Yes.
Is the new business model.
It's the best way to gain followers, and people want to hear your voice. And I think also I have a lot to offer. My years in nursing, my years in comedy now, I consider myself a vet in that regard. I've been a mentor before. I'm 55. I've been around the block a little bit. I think I've gained some wisdom. I think these grades finally came in for something. Remember how I used to say I never had grades?
I know, it pisses me off too, man, because this is the thing that's fucked up. He's actually older than me. Look at this man. He's
Doesn't
fucking
look
beautiful.
like it.
He's like, he doesn't age. I've always hated him for that. I love him because he's a great guy. But when you say you're 55, it just reminds me, son of a bitch.
You've been great for about 10 or 15 years now.
Plus, I lost hair. I got gray. I don't even want to talk about how the aging process is different.
Right. Black doesn't crack, bro. And with the mess that I've been through, I'm surprised.
You should have
gray.
cracked. You should have,
cracked.
man. You have dealt with way more shit than I've dealt with.
Yeah.
You should have cracked a long time ago.
I think, dude, the ability to just shake it off, right?
Yeah.
That's just what gets me through. Yeah, I've had my bad moments. I went through counseling. I had a therapist for like 5 years, at least 4 years that got me through. But I don't know, dude. I have to just let stuff, like a duck slide off your back. You know what I mean?
And you use comedy, of course, as a coping mechanism as
Use
well.
comedy, yes. That has been a savior for sure. And that's what made me bet on myself. So in 2021, I decided, okay, let me go part-time at work. Let me invest in this tour. Let me start just emailing clubs to say, hey, this tour has worked in San Jose since 2013. Can we give it a try? And it went from the San Jose Improv to the Brea Improv to now about over 50 cities in 2 countries.
That's fantastic.
A lot of hard work.
Do you think you're even going to have time to do this podcast?
I will squeeze in time. It's, you do it once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, but I think that's going to help me. My goal is that's going to help me to gain followers. Along with, we're getting into a book. I have a book that this man's sitting here, and I know he's going to give me the look. This man's wrote 20 books in the time I even started putting chapters out. But yeah, this is my next goal because I have shows for the rest of we're in November. For the shows for the rest of this month, which I'll be in Portland, in Helium in Portland this Saturday coming up, November 16th. But after that, I'll have too much free to a degree. I still have to work my 2 nights a week in the hospital. But this is going to be the reset to where I can work on my podcast. I can work on the book because, believe it or not, chapter 1 and 2 are done.
Oh, yeah?
In my writing, yeah. So
I didn't realize you had even started.
I had
That's awesome.
started. I did out chapters, and it was one of those, okay, how do I want this book to flow, right?
Because let me just say this.
Yes, sir.
Occasionally, I will get a message from Greg And they'd be like, hey man, I'm thinking about writing a book. Hey man, how do you write a book? Hey man, what should I do? How do I start writing a book? You know what I mean? I was like, just fucking do it. Like, just, you know? And so I'm glad that you've actually written a couple chapters.
Yes.
That's good.
Written a couple chapters. I think once I planned it out in my head, how I wanted it to flow, I think it's just the nervousness of never writing a book. You're scared your diction's going to be jacked up and things, but that's why you can get a proofreader.
What
right?
editors are for.
Editor,
Yeah.
right. You can get an editor. So I just looked at it like, what really made me motivated to go, along with you, because you have been my number one motivator, looking at Kevin Hart's, I think his first book, You Can't Make This Up. He pretty much just seemed like he was spitballing it, but it was in order.
Yeah.
There was a flow to it. It was a great book, you know. He talked about his childhood and things of that nature. So that's just how I started mapping out the book. I figured, let me start from childhood, the things I've been through, because I have some stories leading up to, you know, even the cancer. The cancer and my comedy tour are like my last chapters, because that's just where I'm at right now. And maybe I'll do part 2 20 years from now.
I've written about 5, maybe 6, 5.5, 6, you know, depending on, because I self-published one when I was a kid too.
Right.
But anyways, everybody, people come up to me all the time and message me all the time about book writing, and most people who message me, I know they're not going to write a book. You know what I mean? I know they've got some ideas in their head. They think, oh, you know, I got a story to tell. My life has been so crazy and unique. Everybody wants to read. I know they're not going to do it. You know, I feel like you are. It's just a matter of time. You know, it's just a matter of, like, you're so damn busy and overextended with this comedy thing and with this with nursing. The way I wrote mine, I literally took my first book, like, and I will say this: I had the advantage of having a publishing contract already. You know, so there was a signed contract that said if I don't deliver a manuscript by a certain date, I have to pay them money, because they gave me an advance, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so having that helped to crack the whip, you know.
Okay.
And so but I did. I took 3 months where I wasn't going to tour. I wasn't going to do anything. I was just going to every day get up, turn my computer on, and write something. You know, and sit there on my computer until I wrote. And there, in the beginning, it was hard. At some days I'd be lucky if I wrote a couple of sentences. You know,
Right.
I remember on day 1 I wrote, you know, the book. That was my title, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew where I wanted to go, but it's just a matter of getting there.
Okay.
And once I got into the habit, though, of writing every day, the words started flowing. And I remember we look at word count because that's what publishers write up in their contracts. And so the first month I wrote 10,000 words. And I was on contract to write 70,000 words. You know, so I wrote 10,000 words in my first month. I had 3 months to write the book. Wow. The second month, I wrote like another 15,000. Okay. That's 25,000 out of 70. And then the third month, I wrote the rest of it, because once I got into it, I couldn't stop. You know, it's like anything else. It's like comedy. It's like working out. It's like anything else.
Right.
It's hard at first, but the more you stick with it, the easier it becomes, and then it gets to a point where you have to do it. You know, you feel like, you know, every single day. And so I'm glad to hear that you got a couple months off of touring, because you really can't get it accomplished without that kind of time commitment. You know?
Yeah, touring is too tough. It's get up, fly to the next destination. You're tired on the flight, right? So you don't want to do it then. Like, I love reading, which I haven't really been able to sit down and read a book or on a flight. Because I get envious of people reading on the flight. I'm like, how do they do that without falling asleep? I usually get on a flight, put my neck pillow on, and I'm out. You know what I mean?
Well, you're tall.
I'm tall.
And see that I always tell, like, I'm tall, I'm also big, but I'm also tall.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I never feel comfortable on a plane. And I think my body, as a defense mechanism to the discomfort that I feel, puts me to sleep. You know, like I think immediately I get on the plane and I'm just like, I can't stay awake. You know, I'll bring a book, every intention of reading it, pass out, wake up, I'm landing. You know, and so if you have the same thing, I think it's because you're tall.
I think it's maybe because I'm tall, or I just know let me get this sleep in, because once I land, it's get your stuff, drive to the venue or go to the hotel, change, off to the venue, and then it's off to the next city.
Yeah, that all sounds reasonable, but I'm going with your tall.
Okay, I'll take that.
That's my explanation for why you
take
sleep
that.
on airplanes.
Yeah, I enjoy. That's why, like, if I go on a vacation, to like an island or somewhere, Jamaica or somewhere, what I love to do is find a beach chair with a nice drink under an umbrella with some food and reading a book.
Yeah.
That does it for me.
Yeah.
Because we don't get those moments.
Not
you know what I mean?
unless you plan them.
Right.
Yeah, not unless you actually schedule them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my goal, to squeeze in one of those vacations.
One of these days we
months.
can get that. One of these days you'll give other people the opportunity to get that moment. Only they'll be reading your book.
I'll be reading my book.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I'm motivated. I'm challenging myself, because like you, with that writing every day and pushing yourself, what works for me is putting a to-do list up that I have in my apartment that I have to look at every day. It's in my living room or a common area, you know what I mean, that has everything checked off. So if you look at it now, it has national tour, creating the national tour, which I did, selling merch, traveling, this, blah, blah, blah. A lot of goals that I accomplished. So the book is up there. So now when I get back, that's one that's not checked off. That and the podcast. So I have no excuses for these next 2 months not to churn that out. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I hope you do. And even if you don't finish the book in a couple months, if you get a good sizable chunk of it done, I mean, you'll find the time to finish it. Yeah.
Nurses Night Out, that's my tour. You can look up me on all the socials at the number 2, tall, because I'm tall, as you mentioned, RN, as in registered nurse. The number 2, tall, RN.
So there's like 2 of you. No, too tall. Too tall RN.
Yes.
Is that what you're...
Yes.
It's a good thing you're an RN, because otherwise that handle wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't make, yeah.
But so that's where people can find you, and learn about your shows, your upcoming shows. I don't know when this will air, so we're not gonna plug your upcoming dates, but people can find you. And yeah, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate you doing the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. Good to see you again,
You
sir.
too, and thanks for. He gave me a set, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that earlier, but he's last minute. I'm driving up, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do a set on this show tonight?"
Of course.
And I'm like, "Yeah." Now I got double reason to get there. Only I was going to be showing up late, so then I dropped my kid off quick, throw my stuff back in the car. I'm like, all right, I'm going. So it worked out, and I appreciate the set.
You made it in the nick of time. Thank you for having me on, sir.
Thank you for doing the podcast. And folks, the rest of you, whether you're watching it or listening to it, thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of On the Road with Dr. Brian. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and blues. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm an asshole.